users have a way of maybe stumbling on some of those things or deliberately working out ways to circumvent these things, mainly because they want their system, their operations to be more efficient.
Right. As you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking like they almost sound like hackers. Hackers are always probing into your system,
exactly.
trying to figure it out. And then you got to realize, oh, wait, your people are doing the exact same thing. Hello and welcome back to another edition of the LifeRaft Security Conversation Series. I'm your host, Robert Ballew. And today I'm joined by our company's Director of Information Security, Suofagha Kiakubu. Our topic today explores an underrated threat to organizations, insiders. Not necessarily the nefarious actors that want to harm your business, but well-meaning individuals that can accidentally compromise the security of your company. We'll also discuss how CSOs can build a more security-aware culture in their organization and practical tips on how to do it. But before we jump into the show, a little bit about my guest, Suofagha. Like I said, he's the Director of Information Security here at LifeRaft. He has almost 20 years of cybersecurity experience advising clients on IT systems, controls, and risk management. As a heads up, our conversation today focuses more on the information security side of things, but all of the insights and perspectives are directly applicable to the world of physical security too. Suofagha, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you too, Rob.
In our pre-interview before about a month ago when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about, the first thing that you said to me, I asked Suofagha, what do you want to talk about with our listeners? And the first thing you said was, I want to talk about the human interface of security. So take me back to when you realized this was so important. What was the aha moment that changed your mind on this?
Good. I think that'll take me back to how I started in information security, where I didn't just come into information security directly. I used to be a programmer, and I went into business analysis and project management also. So in the course of doing that, I was embedded into security teams to help automate their systems, risk management teams, and all that. And I found out that usually on the human angle of the information security landscape, we talk about the external adversary. We create lots of security enablement around our assets to protect ourselves, and then maybe the malicious insider also. But then we don't seem to talk about the well-intentioned insider that's innocently doing certain things to help their business processes, and then that's what's causing the issue. The break in the linkage. So over time, I noticed that, okay, while I was trying to help out with the automation of these things, when I was outside core cybersecurity, and then when I came in also, I noticed, most of the information security awareness programs and all that talk about, the malicious outsider, the insider threats, and then, okay, what you can do to defend against all that. But then we hardly talk about the well-intentioned actions we take that are likely to compromise our infrastructure.
So what do you mean specifically by like the well-intentioned actions, mistakes that could compromise our organizations outside that? Or
sometimes they are not mistakes. It could be that, because of information security controls, you've put certain things in place, and then maybe a particular business process is now very cumbersome. Let me give you an instance. In one of my previous places of work where, data loss prevention is where you think, let data not leak outside, confidential data, personal data and all that. So you put all those controls in place and you say, okay, social media applications are blocked in maybe regulated industries. So, you don't communicate with this. And then after you do all that, there are some legitimate cases for when you want to communicate with external parties. A good example was a particular unit, maybe a communications unit that had a legitimate use to use something like LinkedIn. But some other social media platforms were prohibited and all that. But they found out that, even when they wanted to exchange data legitimately with some other parties, it was blocked. So what they resorted to doing was, we could send this image, attach it. Now, every other platform would not let us do it, or our security controls would prevent us from doing it. But, let's say, okay, Rob, let me just send this to you, this attachment to you through LinkedIn. And then it will go through LinkedIn, right? But you're not supposed to send such attachments. Maybe somehow they needed it for their business process, but they looked for a way to circumvent the controls but for a good purpose. They really wanted to make, because it was a legitimate purpose for them to do that, to share information with their external parties. But then over time, after using that for a while, they decided to, use it for some other things, saw some other use cases that could beat the security system, and all that. And then from there, it becomes a normal process where everybody within the unit knows, that's an easy way to circumvent the security controls for legitimate purposes. And then from there, it now, goes down the drain to when people say, okay, an exception, okay, let me send it to somebody within another, maybe a friend or something like that. Maybe let's just exchange messages, and then from there it goes down the drain,
Down the drain with,
and then maybe from there it becomes something another unit gets to know about, and say, okay, there's a loophole in this process. Okay, this is how we circumvent it, and then after some time, it becomes a normal process. The security team doesn't know about it. The exceptions that have been created by virtue of tightening so many security controls and all that.
Where did these problems tend to emerge? Is this just like a lack of communication between the security department and everyone else in the organization?
Yeah.
Where does that?
Okay. Where most times it happens is the security team does not really understand the business processes of the business units. So, most security controls are sometimes out of the box, or, there are certain basic scenarios you use. Okay. This scenario exists within my organization. Okay. It's just like maybe a cookie cutter kind of thing and all that. But then sometimes it might not apply specifically to your organization. You might not really want to tailor it, or you just say, the profile of where we're getting this from is aligned with the profile of my organization. So let's just do it that way. But it will take you to understand the business process of the particular unit that's affected, the pain points, for you to know, okay, this might not really apply to this part of the organization, even if it applies to everyone. So, okay, can I make a specific case scenario for this particular group of people? So you need to understand your user base very well. And sometimes, security awareness programs, and then the security, information security programs are usually not so much into studying business processes of their user bases. Right? You say, these are the issues we're likely to have. Okay, let's put controls in place. Let's monitor them. But then you need to have a very good feedback loop with your user base to say, okay, how is this inhibiting your normal business processes? That's where the average user begins to think, can I look for a means to make my work a little bit better, a little bit less painful? And it's in the quest to achieve that sometimes you stumble upon, this is possible. And then it becomes a normal process afterwards.
It was interesting that you mentioned understanding the business, because it's the exact same concept like in physical security. If you're in executive protection, you need to understand who are the adversaries, what are the assets being defended, who are the type of people that we're got to be concerned about, the type of threat vectors that they could implement. So it's the same thing in information security, but you need to be able to not just understand who the external actors that we're always worried about, but also just how does the day-to-day processes run in this organization, which is not the sexier side of information security.
Exactly.
Yeah, no one's talking about these kind of things usually it's all about, the ransomware gangs or the Russians or the North Koreans. No one's talking about like, how do we send attachments in Gmail or those kind of things.
And then one very funny scenario is, there was a time now DLP, data loss prevention, is something that's very in the industry now. When it started, and the models that we're using then, sometimes if you wanted to send any message, if you create the rules that you wanted to send any message, maybe through an attachment, the system scans everything to see, are you sending something that meets the rules, that can be flagged and all that. So most times it triggers that monitoring process when you actually send the message, and then, it says, this is exceptional. Do you want exceptional approval? And it goes all the way to whoever wants to approve it. But guess what? Some users found out that, if you just draft a message and you put the attachment on the message, and then you don't send it, it doesn't trigger the alert, right? So it doesn't trigger the alert, so it will stay in your draft email box. And then, you go out of your work system, and maybe you're one of those users that have access to email over the web and all that. And so you log onto another system. Now, since the attachment is still within your draft message, you can still access it outside the perimeter of where the security was, stuff like that. So users have a way of maybe stumbling on some of those things, or deliberately working out ways to circumvent these things, mainly because they want their system, their operations to be more efficient.
Right. As you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking like they almost sound like hackers. You know, hackers are always probing into your system,
exactly.
trying to figure it out. And then you got to realize, oh, wait, your people are doing the exact same thing.
Exactly.
But no one's thinking about them.
Yeah, exactly.
Same mindset. And maybe even better in some ways, because the people are lazy. People are lazy. So I guess if I'm sitting in as the head of security in an organization, how do I get started thinking about these, well-meaning internal threats in my organization? You mentioned like the feedback loop but where would be the best place to kind of get started?
Now, I think I've tried both the formal and the informal process of getting used to, okay, how do you break the ice in your communication with users and all that. I think most times I prefer the informal mechanism where you try to have relationships with business users. It could be targeted. You could say, oh, let me target someone who maybe you might have a particular profile in a particular business unit, hope you have a relationship with them, and then maybe have someone within the security team to have contact points with them to say, oh, where are your pain points? So what do you think we're doing that needs to be done better? Okay, how do we lower our security controls to make sure, okay, we're still protecting our assets, but then we're making your work more efficient and all that. Engaging them informally makes them to feel, oh, you understand my pain. Most times you need to make the other party in the conversation a little bit relaxed and not that. Okay, sometimes when security professionals interact with end users, the thought is, oh, there's something, they're looking for something to secure, or they're looking for what I'm not doing very appropriately, stuff like that. But in order to break the ice, just try to have that informal link with them. I benefit from that a lot, even within LifeRaft and in my previous organizations where I have just generic conversations with users, and then after some time, okay, they say, oh, I saw this happening. Okay, this is happening. We can do this better, and then be open to suggestions from your user base also, because most times they might understand certain things, even the controls that you think you know better, even better than you, because they are the ones that wear the shoes, right? They know where it pinches. So most times having that informal relationship with them to say, okay, to have you as a confident to come on to say, okay, these are the pain points we have. These are the areas where we think your controls are not helping us out. Or these are areas where we think you can beef up this or do this in a different way and all that. Having that informal feedback loop helps a lot, because sometimes they volunteer information on their own without you even going to them after they know, oh yeah, this person reaches out to me in a friendly format and all that. So that's really key.
I mean, you emphasize informal quite a few times, but then it's not jumping right into the security right away, building that friendship, talking about the kids or whatever. And then that makes them a lot more open to.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are, aside from building relationships across the entire organization with all the different departments, what are the typical hurdles that someone in your role would come and run into when trying to implement this?
Okay, yeah. So most times in trying to because most times we're into business to create value, right? And to protect value. Nobody starts a business because you just want to start the business for the fun of it. Now, so most times it's because you want to create value, and your end users are in the process of creating value also. So the assets you're protecting are either the value you've created or the value you intend to create and all that. Maybe it could be intellectual property, it could be a product that you're designing and stuff like that, or something, a product you're selling, or something you're storing, or stuff like that. So it's good to make the users to understand, oh, you're in this together. Because if you're in security, you're not just employed to do security, it's because you want to enable them to protect the value they are already creating. So to make them to have that understanding, and that's where the risk management aspect comes in, because security in the final analysis is risk management. Yeah, you're managing it because you're going, you're actually accepting the level of risk by going to create value. But you think of trade-offs, right? Should I go all out and risk everything? Or should I be a little bit cautious and then protect myself a little bit in trying to create this value? So in trying to explain this in a very understandable format with your end users to say, okay, we're in this together. We're not two different teams. We're the same team. Yeah, you're going out to get this, but I'm protecting you in the process of you going out to get this for the organization. So to make them to see the risk. Okay, so this is a kind of assets you're creating, or you're helping us to build that we're protecting. So this, in trying to make them understand that, you have to explain to them that, okay, this is risk management in a nutshell. We're all managing the risks the organization is exposed to in our drive to create value. So the way a particular asset, you protect a particular asset will be different from how you protect another one. And how open you are to sacrificing the assets altogether. So you have to make those determinations together. Only the information security team cannot make those decisions. If the information security team is making those decisions together, it's not really valid, because the other party understands even some of the concepts of value better than you do. So having that collaborative environment where you say, oh, we're working on the same team, as you're going out to get something for us, I'm watching your back. So that's how this is about.
So would you say that the other party, the company you're working for, they're the ones that have to set that risk reward?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the risk reward. So the end user is very primary in this, because they are either the owners of the assets, or the custodians of the assets, or the ones that are even creating the assets. Right. So sometimes the understanding of value might be different from their understanding of value. So it's good for you to strike a balance between your understanding of value, because to me, you might value an asset. Okay, if you want to put it in dollar value, to say, oh, this is $10,000, but the other party might see it as $50,000, because there's an angle you had not seen, but they are into it, so they've seen the value of the asset. So they'll say, okay, no, you're protecting it like a $10,000 asset, but it's actually a $50,000 asset. And on the reverse side, also, there's an asset that you might think, oh, it's worth $1 million, but the end user might tell you, no, this is actually an asset that's much less than that. So it's up to you to engage the users or the business process owners in that conversation to say, okay, how do we strike a balance of value, and then to decide how well to protect the value.
It sounds a lot like you become the financial advisor for a client. If I'm your financial advisor, Suofagha, I'm not going to tell you how much risk you should take on in your investment portfolio.
That's exactly.
My job is to say, okay, here are the options. Risky portfolio, less risky portfolio. You make that decision, which one is within your tolerance. But I can't tell you that. Good. But then I might be the one to say, well, I want to go all in on cryptocurrencies or something crazy. So, well, here's the risk of that decision.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's not my job to tell you exactly what to do, but just give you that broad
exactly
advice.
As a trusted advisor. It's always good to have users come up, to have the feedback channel I mentioned, always monitor this feedback channel to see how you fine tune it, to see, okay, how well should you communicate with this user as well. The thing is, most times you might have to be the one to make the move, the information security professionals to make the move, because there's always inertia on the user side to come this way. But then the moment that flow is like a pipe, right? The moment that flow is established, it becomes a two-way communication channel. So just to trigger it, to keep monitoring it, and then you have to make it a deliberate thing. Sometimes tend to see things in the traditional light to say, okay, these things are supposed to happen, but then you have to, for want of a better way, you have to be deliberate about it. Make consistent efforts. Sometimes it doesn't come easy. Make consistent efforts to make sure you establish that communication link both ways. The emphasis in this case is both ways. It's either, and how you judge maturity within the flow is when it becomes spontaneous from the end user and coming to you to engage you on things that have to do with security, not you just going out to them. So most times the first contact end users have regarding information security is very key, where you don't make it so traditional, but try as much as possible to understand the culture within your organization also, because the information security program is not existing in a vacuum. It's within a cultural system, right? Organizational cultural system. So it's good to understand organizational culture. Also, the way you communicate within a particular organization might be different from how you communicate within another organization. So always do it within the context of the organizational culture, which is very key. So if your users are used to formal interaction, but okay, you might adopt it. If it's informal, you adopt informal, and then try to use the channels they are used to and all that to engage that. So the understanding of the underlying organizational culture happens. It's very key. Why that is key is because that's where both parts of the organization are aligned, because both of you are within the same organization, and the organizational culture permeates the whole unit, right? So that's a common ground for you to relate. So organizational culture is very, very key. So you have to acknowledge that and act within the confines of your organizational culture.
If you're not in alignment, you're going to have some issues.
Yeah, very well. You're going to have some issues. Yeah.
One of the keywords that I clued into there right away was you mentioned the traditional way that security will interact with other stakeholders in the organization. What are those kind of meetings? What does that look like? That kind of is
okay,
like,
yeah, exactly.
That's the wrong way to go.
Yeah, exactly. Security awareness programs. Just you dish out PowerPoints or automated training platforms where they go. But most of those things are compliance driven most times because of a particular compliance program, you have to meet its expectations of the compliance program. So it's just like ticking the boxes. Ticking the boxes doesn't really help. Most times, you might meet the compliance requirements of the particular standard you're working towards, but then at the expense of you building a risk and security aware culture within the organization. So to me, risk management always comes before compliance, because if you're doing your risk management bit very well, compliance usually follows suit afterwards. But if you're doing compliance alone, risk management doesn't tag along most of the time. So the risk management comes first, then compliance follows.
Right. I've sat on the other side of those presentations where it's like getting drawn on and on. I'm like, I'm a bit more interested in it because I'm a bit nerdy on this stuff, but I can imagine most people are just zoning out.
Yeah.
The other keyword there too that I clued in your last answer was a security awareness culture. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So a risk and security aware environment is where security is not just seen as something that some unit is doing or a specific action, but it's embedded within the processes where the person who is doing a marketing campaigns understands that, I'm actually the person who is responsible for securing my own function, not the security function. So everybody wears a security hat. And then that way, in your engagement with everybody, it's you're the owner of this asset, or you're the custodian of this asset. So it's your primary responsibility to protect it for the organization, not for me. Now, if you're having challenges or you're looking for a better way of doing it, that's where we need to engage, because, there are people who have more expertise in this, right? And can advise you. So I'm your trusted advisor, but you are the actual person that protects value.
Gotcha. I felt like in that example when you mentioned marketing, you're like targeting this specifically to me. Are you trying to get a message across here? Hey, Rob, stop posting these stuff on social media. It's causing us trouble. No more work ID badges. So how do you? So we've kind of talked a bit about like the informal meetings and building a relationship. Is there anything else to helping create that in an organization besides just meeting people one-on-one?
Okay, yeah. So it's good to interact with different user bases within the organization to say, what medium of communication would you prefer? What channel? Okay, if we're to come up with practical scenarios where we want to train users on a particular use case, what would you prefer? Would you prefer games? Would you prefer information security related games, or would you prefer snippets of a particular training, 15 minutes or 5 minutes, nuggets, very little stuff that will be catchy, that will be aligned to maybe a favorite character in the movie, or stuff like that. Things that would make those things stick, not like we mentioned before, conventional or traditional mediums, stuff like that. So having that engagement to say, your users, you could group them based on maybe interests. Okay, some users have interest in this particular area. How can we align our trainings to be relevant to them based on their interest, or based on channel they will want to receive this kind of training and all that. So that's very, very key. So getting right out of the gate, getting the input of those who are going to be stakeholders in the process, not after you've made some field attempts, you say, okay, let's backtrack, and then, try to, from day one, try to get their input into it to make sure, because if I'm coming to, where you're planning some sort of a meal for me and all that, it's not at the time you're serving the meal that you say, okay, these are the options you have. But I would appreciate it if you had asked me earlier, this is what I'm thinking about. What do you think would be okay for you? But not at the time you're serving, you say, I have 7 options. Yeah, I'm sure out of the 7 options, you see something you like. Yeah.
You served me up a sirloin steak. Suofagha, I'm a vegan. What are you doing? But you just can't force this upon the entire organization what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's good to get their input from the get-go. Say, these are the options we have. We're building this out. These are the options we have. How can we engage you in this? And then let's see how we can design this together.
Right. And I imagine it's a huge force multiplier in terms of what you can do with this, because Suofagha, you're one guy. You can't secure every computer on this.
Not at all.
You got to have everyone working together on this.
Yeah,
on this
very
thing.
well. Yeah.
I want to transition the conversation, continuing a bit more onto the education theme. So, I mean, at LifeRaft, we're obviously in the security space. So, I would think that typically, I would hope, on average,
Yeah.
the other stakeholders in the business maybe are a bit more security aware than other places.
Yeah.
But I can imagine if you're in a healthcare company or you're in retail, that's not going to be. I mean, I came across an interesting survey by Armis, and they were just talking about the awareness of typical people and organizations. So 2/3 of respondents don't see their personal device as a security threat. A third never even heard about the Colonial Pipeline incident. Half never heard about the Florida watering tampering incident. I mean, the day-to-day stuff in our organization we talk about and share all the time.
Exactly, yeah.
In the rest of the world, in all the other industries, this is way overhead. What do you make of that survey? How do you respond to that?
We mentioned this earlier. Your user base, understand your user base, know your user base. Like, I know my user base in LifeRaft to be highly security aware and all that. Now, in terms of putting it in the language that the information security professional would want, might not be there, but then they understand it, they know it, they get this because they are within the security space, right? Now, if I come to them to give them some low level stuff, that's already boring from out the gate. So you tailor the content and the engagement level to the security awareness level of your organization. Now, going back to the other industries you mentioned where, and guess what? Some of those industries are well compliance driven, seriously compliance driven, where you say, oh, tick the boxes, you have to do this by this time, you have to do this annually, you have to do this quarterly, you have to do this, and then they tailor all those things. Now, that's where the compliance versus risk management part comes in. Most times, most compliance-driven stuff is just like when you say, oh, like educational systems where you say, oh, those who go through rote learning, okay, just spew out whatever you're taught, and then and then those who go into critical thinking, understanding the concepts and all that, do better than those who just spew out what they are taught. So that shows the effectiveness of really understanding your people and tailoring contents to them applies works better than just throwing out traditional stuff and then thinking, oh, this is going to come back with rewards. Most times it doesn't come back. It doesn't come back that way. It just hits the wall and then, oh, you just check the box, So tailoring really, really matters. And also there are certain, the kind of issues that certain industries exposed to are different from what some others are exposed to also. So it's good to know what exactly you're likely to come across or your users are likely to come across. But but somehow that's been blurred out in the current age where there's a thin line between working. Think about even work from home requirement now that has hit us unexpectedly, and then also where users access devices from their personal devices and then work related devices and all that. So that line is being blurred. So that makes us to have the necessity to rethink our security awareness model to say, oh, the buckets we usually put different sets of users in, are those buckets really valid for the time and given the current challenges we have? So it's a time for us to rethink our model.
I guess suppose this answer would vary a lot considerably depending by industry and obviously like you mentioned, the security awareness of the staff on the team. But what would be the biggest topics that you would want to get across to employees?
Depending on how well structured you are, there's a tendency for end users to want to do security, maybe DIY, do it yourself. Most times, it's very risky for end users to do security themselves, in the sense that, I think something has gone wrong. Let me go fix it myself. It's good to always have a framework where they can reach out to, maybe it could be an incident response team. It could be but it's good to have a structured flow where users know, okay, this is how to reach out to resources they would need in event of an incident or a near incident. And then the reporting also, it's good to always report and let users know. And most of the time, I tell people when I'm interacting with them initially that there's no reporting that's dumb reporting. Report everything. Anything you feel you're suspicious about, just report it. Just report it and leave the classification to the professionals to handle whether it's a false positive or not. But then have the culture of whenever you see something suspicious or you have a hunch about anything, always report it using normal channels. And then try to, I always encourage users to say, oh, try to force a feedback. In case you think you need feedback on this and you're not getting it, try to ask for it. ask for it, be proactive about it. That way, everybody becomes a gatekeeper of our resources. That you demand, even you demand what you think you should have. And that's why most times in my initial information security sessions, I tell people, look, if you notice something going wrong, just make sure you're the gatekeeper, make sure you report it, make sure you take action about it. That action is what's really key about the time between when something happens and when you take action. That action, initial action, matters a lot, because the leeway, the window of opportunity you have narrows with time in terms of response.
So like the old war propaganda line, if you see something, say something.
Say something, yeah, if you see something, say something, yeah.
As you were saying that, I was thinking about with COVID contact tracing, and one of the things that they were really worried about was the issue of shame. And so when there was this shaming tactics on social media, they were saying like, this isn't helpful. We want people talking about this where they were, because it's more important to stop the spread. I would think it's the same issue in information security. So how do you, if I click on a bad link or something, I might feel really embarrassed what I did. How do you kind of avoid the stigma of shame when something goes wrong?
I get those that feedback a lot. When, hey, you're not exposed. I clicked this, I knew. And these are people who know very well that I know them. They are very security aware. Yet they do, and they say, oh, sorry about this. And I said, no, it's understand. Anybody can make that mistake. Anybody, I can click it to mistakenly. But the thing is, for you to even be mentioning it means you're acting appropriately. Because you're feeling, oh, you shouldn't have done it. That thought alone is positive. Now, there's no shame about it. Anybody can fall victim. And then, one thing about even when scammers in the normal, even outside the cybersecurity world, what scammers tend to feed on most times to repeat the same thing to the same victim is when they feel, oh, it's shame. And then the person doesn't report it, doesn't share it, and then over time they get the same kind of incursions and the same kind of attacks and all that. So making people very relaxed, like you said, that despite what happens, no, we're in this together. It can happen. We can recover. So resilience is just like in the cybersecurity world. Generally, we say, oh, everybody's vulnerable to a certain degree. We're just waiting for something to happen, and then to recover from it. So it's your resilience that really matters. How well can you recover from it? How well can you get back to where you were and all that? So in the individual experience also, it's good to get that across to say, no matter what happens, whether you took the wrong step or not, how well can we recover from it? How can we work together to salvage this and all that? So that's very important to have that confidence, to instill that confidence in your relationship, that we're in this together, despite what happens, we can recover together.
Right. And I mean, it is so easy to fall for these things, like a phishing email. The from sender could be, a little typo in the thing.
Exactly.
You get 100 of these emails. I catch 99. One, I click on
one. Exactly. Yeah.
To getting that message across hey, that can happen to anyone. Kind of just want to open this up even more broad to end it up. How do you think the cybersecurity landscape is going to change the most over the next 5 or 10 years? What are the biggest trends that you're watching right now?
Okay. Now, the trends I'm really particular about are two: cyber threat intelligence and security orchestration, automation, and response. The cyber threat intelligence world relies on tools like Navigator to get threat intelligence, and then they curate that to special use cases that are particular to the cybersecurity industry and all that. But then there's a trend in trying to standardize that. It's not standardized in a way that tools can easily use that and consume the information to make it actionable down the line. But there's something that's happening in that space where thin standards are beginning to take shape in the form of what they call sticks and tags. Those are platforms, languages they can use to express threat intelligence, and then infrastructure they can use to disseminate the information. And then another trend that's coming up is security orchestration, automation, and response, where we get this huge data from different sources, tools, security analysts, and all that, to say, okay, this is data we have about security information and events and all that. But how do we tailor all this huge data we're getting to something actionable, removing the noise, the false positives and all that, and then automating the actions we need to take down the line, So that's something that's really rearing up. And then the use of artificial intelligence also, now that data is exploding in terms of how data sources we have, and that's something human intervention alone cannot help. So using the power of AI and then working out the standards where we can all communicate threat intelligence in a common language that we can automate, and then come up with workflows that would learn over time to say, okay, this was a false positive the other time. Now I know it's not a false positive. So this is how I'm going to handle it going forward. And then though there'll be some level of human intervention, but then it will harness the power of the machine to make sure we make our work more efficient. So that's something that's really, really gearing up. And then, just like any new thing that comes into any industry, there's a lot of buzzwords and all that. But then over time, it's taking structure, and then we're beginning to get value out of it. And that's going to be huge in the coming years.
How do you keep up to date with a field that's changing so quickly? What's your routine?
Yeah.
So, just shake your head sometimes.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot you have to keep up with. But the thing is, trying to leverage resources. Most times I talk about different abstraction layers, right? Like the navigator tool gives you lots of information. Now, the next level, some of our clients use it to abstract to another level where they say, oh, this is a use case that's necessary for us. Just in the information security space also, it's good to know, okay, who do I go to? Where do I source my knowledge from that would have abstracted information to a particular level where it's compressed for me to consume that information in a short while, because I have something else to consume also. So having to source information from several sources to be up to date, to be subscribed to a couple of lots of information sharing organizations, and also working on being part of some of the cybersecurity organizations, attending webinars. But you have to be on your toes, and then networking helps a lot too. And in the cybersecurity industry, we've come to learn that collaboration is very key. You don't have everything. It's the more you're connected, the better it is, because you get little snippets of information from this. You're able to synthesize that to make more actionable, get more actionable information, take decisions and all that. So it's a whole lot. It's a whole lot.
What kind of, with the collaboration point you made, what's kind of interesting is you'll see these companies and they're competing fiercely against each other in the marketplace, but the security departments are all working together and collaborating.
Exactly,
they're on the same page. Because the bad guys, they got the same bad guys.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Suofagha, thanks, man, for taking the time. The last question I wanted to ask you as we're kind of wrapping up is, what is the big takeaway that you'd like our listeners to remember from our conversation?
Yeah. So to know that the end user is a central point of your information security strategy. Just make the end user the focal point. Most times, because they would be your eyes in terms of, because you will not be there when the particular event you're thinking is going to be troublesome is going to happen, because they'll be your eyes. So making them the focal point and making them to be ambassadors of your program is very key. And how you engage the users to be your ambassador matters. It's just like when you have an ambassador of your country going to represent you outside. They represent you as this is my country, So let them be ambassadors of your program. Let the end user be the focal point, and then let them be the ambassadors of your program.
Suofagha, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Again, that was Suofagha Kiakubu, Director of Information Security here at LifeRaft. Thanks for listening to another edition of the LifeRaft Security Conversation Series. If you'd like more practical tips on how to use threat intelligence to protect your organization, be sure to check out our blog at liferaftinc.com/resources. That's liferaftinc.com/resources. Hope you found that useful, and I hope you join me again in our next conversation real soon.